Hello and welcome back to Parley. This one was paid for by Zezmeril. I hope you'll enjoy listening. It's about starting streaming, or perhaps not, as I might go on to suggest. Zezmeril says, bit of a different request. How about tips and tricks for someone getting started with streaming in general? It's something many people want to do, but few know where or how to start. And I absolutely love hearing the specific ways that these questions are worded by each of you. Not to nitpick at all, I generally try not to, but I just think it's really interesting. Like that's true, though that is going to be a good place to start for us, I think. Why do you want to stream? This is an excellent starting point. I'm not going to be able to get to everything that would be useful even if we did hours. I could probably talk about this for 2 or 3 hours before running out of things to immediately say that I thought would be useful to most people. So I'm going to force myself to follow the half-hour or so limit that Parley proclaims to have a little more strictly. I hope you can understand. I would just go forever otherwise. And additionally, this may have been asked before or since, and I've got a good memory for the things I've said before, but I do Parley so much that I kind of don't remember, and I think that's good. I'm just going to give you a fresh take. So anyway, this is awesome. I've been looking forward to answering this one. Let's go. Why do you want to stream? I feel like there are maybe 3 obvious fulfillments that streaming could provide. So things that would be goals you would likely fulfill if you tried to stream. These categories are going to be, I'm going to call the first one social. This would be kind of talking to people on the internet, maybe opening up a little bit, maybe talking with friends with people on the internet, maybe talking as part of a community, having the experience of streaming. I would kind of put in this vaguely social category. This one probably doesn't require that you be particularly numerically successful. That is, not that many people have to watch you, though I'll go on to argue many times during this video that you still need like not 0 people to watch you to really have had the experience. And then the other 2 I would say are sort of fame, the fame one, and business, we'll call the other one. The fame one, I would discourage this approach. I think you'll ultimately live to regret pursuing this, even if you do succeed, and you won't statistically. Twitch is problematic in that, we'll talk about this in the next section more, there aren't that many ways to differentiate yourself from other streams. There aren't that many things that can be that good about an individual stream. And so eventually the way that social media works is going to select a few people to just be popular. They needn't necessarily be good, though many of them do find a way to be like skilled at something. Many of the people that are doing really well, they're good at something, not necessarily something that provides a lot of entertainment value. But it is so incredibly unlikely that you will be one of them. And it doesn't really have that much to do with how good you are, how much you entertain people, if you want to define it that way. So I don't encourage the fame one. This would be, you kind of want to have had the experience, you want to have done the streaming, but it's not necessarily streaming itself that you like. You want to be popular. To put it positively, it's interesting to throw your hat into the ring and compete in such a large space. Do people care enough about me for me to be seen over other people? I think my biggest problem is Twitch just doesn't really do that, because a lot of people will simply never even try watching you. There isn't really a way for them to find you. But we'll talk about this a lot more over the course of the Parley. And the final one is business. Twitch is, again, not likely to make you a full living at all. And I would like you to go into this subject thinking, if your goal is to be completely successful only with Twitch, you might as well give up now. There's simply no reason to do it that way, as I'll suggest later, and you're incredibly statistically unlikely to be like the person who just will succeed, because eventually the forces that be are just going to make someone's channel popular. It's not going to be you. However, for business purposes, I think Twitch plays a very nice role. It's really easy to supplement, like a YouTube channel, for example, which has some great synergy with Twitch, even if you're mostly interested in streaming. It could still be a good, it might be the primary thing for you, but a good supplement for a business that isn't primarily from Twitch. Twitch has some relatively accessible ways to monetize, I guess you could say, and the thing that you're doing can easily double dip and become valuable entertainment for people elsewhere. So I think Twitch is a really good business proposition as part of another structure. It itself will very likely not fulfill all of your needs, but is it a helpful tool or part of a business? Absolutely, definitely. And I'm not sure how much time we'll have on that. It won't apply to most people. What I'll say is if anybody gets successful from listening to this parlay, we can do another one where we talk more about like the synergy, capital S synergy in a white collar workplace, of Twitch. But probably doesn't mean much right now. In any case, for the fame and business ones, you would need like a meaningful number of people to watch you, more than like 5 to 10. You're going to need a decent sized core audience of, minimum of maybe a couple dozen, 50-ish, regular people. And probably a lot more than that for most people's goals. But most people will never pass a few hundred, even if they're pretty successful. Even many people who do make most of their living streaming don't have more than like 100 or 200 like regular viewers. It's only the statistically impossible, extremely massive popular people that have more than that. So keeping it in perspective, getting a good dozen people to watch consistently is further than most people ever get. So don't look down on that number. I'm not trying to defend myself, by the way. I've really focused on smaller number of people getting more directed entertainment for the subject that we're all interested in. And I'm not going to talk too much about my approach in this parlay. We just don't have time. Okay, a second thing for this section, the climate of Twitch. We're going to fly through this, but it is important. Even if you know what your goal is, why you're going to stream on Twitch, the audience will assume that it is either the goal of the most popular people on Twitch or the goal of people of your size. To put it a different way, people are going to expect discussion from you when you are a small channel, regardless of whether that is your goal or it makes sense for them to expect that, simply because people don't generally think in terms of there being different ways to do things. Their understanding is the only perspective they have, and it takes a lot of time and effort to gain other perspectives. So generally people behave in the world as if their perspective is the only perspective. Foolish though that is, it's perfectly understandable. It takes a lot of time to do otherwise. So you should expect that people coming into your stream will, until this advice is irrelevant to you, expect discussion to some extent, and we're going to talk about what you can do about that in a few more sections. But I think it's important to keep that in mind. You may, on the other hand, want to approach streaming by having prepared an explanation of why you are streaming instead, because hearing such a thing is fascinating, and probably one of the simplest hooks to get people interested in your stream would be to simply be able to say what it is, which I think 90% of people can't really do, or they would give you an answer that is more or less just the definition of streaming in general. We're going to play games and hang out on the internet. That isn't really an answer to this question. It might be something like, my friends and I wanted to, add a little something to us playing, our daily PvP game that we usually play. And we thought maybe it'd be interesting to see what the audience thought of the strategies that we're putting together. And we play at a kind of intermediate competitive level, so we thought it would be, fun to watch, could be good gameplay, but also maybe you'll give us some feedback about the strategies we're using. That's not super specific, but that's pretty good. That's a specific enough purpose for the stream, topic of discussion for a stream that would direct people, really leave an impression on people that I think people would really enjoy, and which I think is not so specific that it's hard to have. You may not know what this thing is about yourself that could be the specific focus of your stream, but that isn't so specific that you lack something like that. You are specific enough to have something like that could be the subject of the stream. You probably don't know what it is off of the top of your head. I'm later going to recommend beginning streaming essentially as soon as possible to find this thing, but we're not quite there yet. One last thing I wanted to mention before we move on is that I hope some people, a small percentage of people, are discouraged from streaming by listening to this. And it's not because I don't want you to stream. I think it's just that it isn't a good way to fulfill goals for some people who think of it as a good way to fulfill their goals. I kind of alluded to this earlier, but one part of this is the idea that it might feel good to have streamed, but actually streaming isn't that fun. A lot of people are thinking the business side and they think, oh yeah, I just get to play video games all the time. But when you're actually streaming full time or whatever, it may not feel like that. I won't talk down to you all, audience of mine. I think if you're the type of people who listen to waffling about the minute details of a subject for fun, thanks for your patronage, by the way. You probably aren't the people who need to be told, like, maybe you should be humble about whether or not you know that you want to do this. Like, you probably know that. But you should be humble about whether you know that you want to do this. The only real solution is to do it. So I'll be recommending how you could start doing that as soon as possible in this next section. But just keep in mind that maybe once you investigate why you want to stream, it would actually be better not to stream to fulfill that goal. Or possibly it isn't better to stream yet to fulfill that goal. Okay, next section is practical stuff. This is probably the most straightforward answer to your question. I worry that it's the least helpful because you could just look this stuff up, but I actually do have a few specific tips. This is the hardware and software section. How physically do you literally stream, right? And again, because this is the section you could most easily just look up, I will tell you the things that I didn't have a very good time when I looked up that will probably actually help you the most. So the first one is software, which is easy. I would recommend using OBS, Open Broadcaster Software. It's free, open source, open broadcaster software. And yeah, I don't think you need any features that it doesn't have until you know what you want to do streaming way more than you do currently if you're listening to this video. So that should be fine. It's very widely used, so it should be easy to get support. I'm just not sure what features. I'm not sure you should be that excited about relying on a specific feature, but maybe there could be some cool, it would ultimately be a gimmick thing that some other piece of software can do. But I would recommend OBS. There's a version of it called Streamlabs OBS or Slobs that is also free. It has chat integrated into the window, and you can also add alerts, like people follow your stream, or when you become an affiliate, they subscribe to your stream. We'll talk about that later. And a little alert pops up with sound and a visual and their message, you know, that. Streamlabs OBS Slobs has that built in. Now, it's very easy to do even if you don't use Slobs. You simply go to the website that is managing your alerts. You know, they'll put a chatbot in your chat or something that will monitor when this happens. And you'll manage how you want the alert to look in that website. And then all you do is copy paste a link that they'll give you into your OBS client as a browser source. It really is very easy, but Streamlabs OBS just makes it that little bit easier. I actually use both. I have Streamlabs OBS for only streaming, and just normal OBS is what's open right now as I'm recording this to record videos. You can manage settings and have there be separate profiles. You don't need to install both, but I already use that profile system for different types of video recording. So I find it mostly mentally useful to have them be separate. When I stream, I open up Streamlabs OBS. It feels like the streaming version, which I find mentally useful. So something you could do if you wanted to, but I'd recommend using those. Hardware, this is really where the discussion picks up a little bit. I will briefly say that if you want it, I use a chat overlay, like a transparent chat overlay. This is one's called Twitch Chat Overlay, so you can look that up. This is a transparent window that shows you chat on the gameplay footage that you're using or over whatever you want. If that would be useful to you, you can use that. Not everybody will want it. And again, Streamlabs OBS does show you, chat. You might want to have Twitch itself open in a web browser as well. But let's talk about hardware. So you probably have a webcam. And if you have a webcam, you're good to go starting streaming today, potentially. If you're listening to this and you've got a good amount of the day, like 4 hours free today, you're good to start today. And I would recommend that you do start today. We'll get to that fully, but you can make your Twitch account and set up OBS easily in an hour. And you've got your webcam, which has a mic, you're good to go. Now, the mic is not good. The webcam, though, the camera, you might be thinking, well, I could upgrade that. I don't know. You could, but you should get more lights first. I have a lamp with a lampshade, a ring light, a larger lamp with a lampshade, another ring light, and significant ambient light coming in through the window, even though there's a shade and blackout curtains over it, because this is like the light of heaven coming into my space. It's so bright. And the light from the monitors, a 1440p monitor and a 1080p monitor, both adding light as well. An even arc of various relatively warm temperature in color lights in a 180-degree arc or so, and some from the back if you can figure out an easy way to do that, but it's not the end of the world, creates a pretty even lighting. And while the shadows from my hands are a little pronounced, I think overall this is pretty good. Wouldn't you agree? Like, this is solid lighting. I'm not using any special or good quality equipment. The ring lights are like $5 off the internet. The lamps are just the normal lamps I use in this room. These are nice monitors, but obviously their primary purpose isn't to light me. And this webcam was $50. So they're not of significant quality. You can make a stream with the same quality as my stream using hardware of a negligible cost. Probably you won't need to buy anything except for audio. The webcam's audio, of course, would not sound very good. I'm not going to turn on my webcam's microphone. So were you to upgrade some hardware, you should upgrade the microphone. And I will now spend a little longer than maybe you'd think it would be useful, but I'll try to make it quick, talking about how you could upgrade that, because this was quite difficult for me and it really doesn't have to be. So I'll tell you my thoughts on that subject. This is really the only thing I would recommend upgrading for most people. I have things like a Stream Deck, the Elgato Stream Deck. I have the normal size version with 15 buttons. I think that's a good size if you're in the market for this device. It lets you switch scenes very easily in OBS. Like, you can switch from something that looks like this to, I hit a button on the Stream Deck instead of hitting like the name of that scene in my OBS client to switch between like stuff, right? That's nice. Ask for it as a gift from someone. I don't think it's worth the money. Spend that money on better microphone equipment instead. Okay, and here's what I'd recommend you buy. First of all, microphones. Your webcam's camera, you're good, but the microphone, you should start streaming right away, because the stream won't be good anyway when you start, no matter how long you wait or how good your microphone is. You might as well get better at streaming and practice, get those repetitions in right away. But you will want to upgrade the mic. That is the biggest thing you could do to make the stream better. Most people watching you will be hearing you all the time, but not watching you for most of the time. It'll be kind of background noise or an accompaniment to something they're doing. So I think having the audio quality be better is really, really good. That is important. I'm not saying you should start streaming right away with your webcam mic, because it isn't important, just because you have other stuff you need to get done. You follow me? You should upgrade the sound, and here's what I would recommend doing. You can get something like the Blue Yeti. Now, very quick microphone theory. The Blue Yeti is a big Chongo thing. You can look up what it looks like. You've probably seen them. It's a very common microphone for this, and it plugs into your computer by USB. But there are actually two things that you need for your microphone setup, and the Yeti is both of them put together. You need a microphone, obviously. It picks up your voice and gets the sound into a waveform format. But you also need a preamplifier, and that is built into the Blue Yeti in this case. So it's heavy. Why does that matter? Well, if you buy a preamp separately, and your microphone is then wired to a separate preamp, and then you plug that into your computer, the microphone doesn't have to be nearly as heavy, with essentially the same actual microphone as the Blue Yeti. You can buy a very cheap microphone arm for like $10 and hang it over your setup and have it be right in your face. I recommend slightly off center, so my microphone's here and I'm talking here, just slightly past it. Upside down is fine too, if that's easier to orient. It is easier to orient for me that way. You can get cheap equipment around it if your microphone and preamp are separate. It was very difficult for me to get my heavy Blue Yeti over the setup where I wanted it. So I have an Audio-Technica microphone, the exact model I don't know, and it doesn't really matter. You should look into it yourself. But I'd recommend a cardioid or shotgun microphone that picks up sound from the front. A lot of microphones nowadays could let you swap which pickup pattern they have, so you can probably make them cardioid. And if it doesn't say and it's for like recording stuff, it probably is, but it really should say. You should look. And then my amp, my preamp is a Scarlett 2i2. This is a very popular, like not interesting choice preamp. I don't have the knowledge to make a like really informed build. This is my like basic but really good build. And then they're connected by an XLR cable. Now these technologies have existed for a long time, longer than I've been alive, for decades. And so I'm quite confident that these pieces of kit will basically never fail me. I'll just switch out of them before they would break, unless I break them. And so even though it's pretty expensive, a couple $100 to upgrade this setup, probably at minimum actually, for an okay mic and then a decent preamp and the cables, you got to get that mic arm. But it's basically the only upgrade you would ever make, and it's basically it forever. You know what I mean? There's like no need to add any other stuff. We're not going to get into things like PC, specs for streaming. That's just not a good use of this time. But you could look that up. Again, it's something you can't do much about without spending thousands of dollars. So I'm not sure there's really a point in talking about it. But you could just look that up. Now, as for soundproofing foam, though, so I weirdly had a lot of trouble finding good recommendations for how to put soundproofing foam on your walls. The basic hotness for where to put them is pretty simple. Either put them at your talking level around the room. So you see that one on the back, I'm having trouble pointing to it. There we go. That is about at the height of my head, right? So the sound waves bouncing off the wall are hitting that and then getting dampened so they don't bounce back too much and create reverb. That's the basic idea. So you can either put them, if you have very limited foam, right at your sort of talking height, if you will. Or the original tutelage in the industry was to put them on the vertices of the room. So view the room as a cube and line the edges first, the corners, then the edges of the box, and then go from there. But you need more soundproofing foam for that to create an even result. So I would recommend doing your talking height level first. If you have limited foam. Though I'm not an expert on this subject, I don't think I really have enough foam for this space. Hanging it on the wall, though, here's what I would recommend doing. This was weirdly difficult. I didn't get any good answers from the internet, but I devised a pretty simple and cheap way to do it. This is what it looks like on the back of those panels. What I've done is put hot glue, so get a basic hot glue gun, and I put a dollop of hot glue. Then I took these command strips, they're called. Obviously, none of these people are sponsored. And took the, stick onto the object side. They're labeled. And put that with the sticky sticker peeled off onto the hot glue. So it's hot glue and the sticky side of that little command strip against the piece of foam. That will hold. The foam holds well to the hot glue, and then the sticky part holds to the hot glue pretty well, and they kind of meld together. Then you've got the wall side, again, they're labeled, with the sticker on it. So when I want to hang this up, I can peel these off, put it on the wall, and take it off the wall reliably without damaging the walls. Weirdly, there is really no other good way to do this that I've seen recommended anyway, that isn't really expensive or way more complicated. I would highly recommend that you buy some basic soundproofing foam, like an inch or two thick, and get some command strips and a glue gun and do that. Put, 4 points, press it against the wall for like 30 seconds, and there you go. That was a big pain for me when I started doing this, so that's how I would highly recommend doing it. I haven't ever seen any even remotely good recommendation, and it's not like my method is that complicated, so it's really weird that no one's recommending that. Anyway, finally, you can do some stuff in the software to make your audio a little better. And you can do this before you upgrade. You don't need any of these physical objects to do this, of course. So this is really useful, maybe pretty important in that way. Go into your mic settings. So in OBS, you'll see there's like the little 3 dots for mic settings. You can go to filters. And then I'm going to suggest adding a compressor, a noise gate, and noise suppression to your microphone. You can look up good settings for those: a compressor, noise gate, and a noise suppression. Here's what those 3 things are doing. So the first thing is that it's limiting out sounds that are too quiet. Background noise or humming of my air conditioning unit that just turned on. I can hear that at a moderate level, but you can't, because the microphone is rejecting signals that are below a certain, frequency. And then the second and third thing are magnifying sounds that are a little too quiet and limiting sounds that are a little too loud. So when I talk at a low whisper like this, you can see, and I can see using the software, that you can still hear me at about the same volume I was talking before, even though I was just talking about half the actual volume that I was to my ear. I've set the software so that if I talk quieter, it kind of averages it out a little bit. And also louder. If I really shout and project a little bit, the level of the waveform doesn't actually change much for you, even though I'm talking much louder. This also limits you from getting loud popping or clipping where the microphone overloads and it's an unpleasant sound. This stops that from happening. You just set these once and then you're basically just good. It's a huge boon. This is by far the easiest way to get the relatively most quality. So very, very valuable. For hardware and software stuff, like that's most of it. I wouldn't worry too much about having a bunch of chatbots or having like monitors for follower goals and stuff. You can do that if you want to, but you can always add it later. And I'm telling you, there's no good reason for people to follow you streaming as you are right now. So really, you should just start streaming. And that's what we're going to end by discussing. Why are people going to watch your stream over some others? After all, Twitch doesn't really do a good job of advertising new people streaming. There are some places where Twitch will occasionally recommend a totally random streamer to someone. I mean, I'm sure it's not totally random, but it generally isn't used for smaller channels, and it's a very minor aspect of Twitch. YouTube, on the other hand, has some pretty chaotic ways of recommending videos, as you might have experienced if you use YouTube a lot. Occasionally, YouTube will recommend you something utterly random that practically nobody has seen, just because, like, to get initial data on it, I guess. But on Twitch, there's not only less of that, Twitch doesn't do that as much, but also Twitch doesn't have as many pieces of data to work with. Streams, all of them, are more similar than videos taken as a whole, right? More of what you're seeing on the stream is just like relatively more similar in content than others. So it's very difficult to set your stream apart in any way. The basic model I would recommend is to find what is unique to your stream, because trying to make it better than other people's streams isn't a very fruitful pursuit. After all, you're not better than lots of the people that are already good at doing this for a living, but you are unique compared to them in some meaningful way. You'll probably need to find out what this is. You probably don't know off the top of your head, or it would change, so you're gonna have to stream a little bit to figure it out. Again, some of the initial streaming, no matter how prepared you are, is going to be simply preparing what you are actually going to do while you're streaming. So you need to stream, even though you must feel like, well, but it's not going to sound that good yet and everything. It's not going to be entertaining when you first do it, even if the fancy microphone has come. And a lot of people take the approach of only spending money on equipment from money they make streaming. Though for some audio quality upgrades, maybe you should do it first, because trying to be the best at something isn't the same as trying to be like not annoyingly bad at something. And your webcam's microphone might be annoyingly bad. But indeed, if you have friends that do this, you may be able to borrow a microphone to use for now before you get the setup you really want to get, right? Anyway, you need to start streaming. And so what do? Well, there's a lot of factors here, so I'll try to fly through them quickly. We'll go a little over 30 minutes, but I still want to keep it limited as much as possible, because we could just talk about this forever. And at some point, it's just too much information for you, too. Let's see. Well, first of all, schedule. You should stream when you are ready to stream. When do you have time, and a little time before? A chunk of about 1 to 3 hours, I would say. 2 or 3 hours, maybe. To stream the thing you want to stream. When are you free to do that consistently? And when will you be free to do that consistently for a long time? Because if you find someone who's free the same time every week, as most human beings are, yeah, you'll lose them if you change the time, right? No matter how good you are, they simply can't tune in if they're not free that time. So staying at the same time is really good. Trying to make an intelligent choice about what type of time you'd be able to commit to for forever, like for a very long time, is hard. But doing it something like after work or whatever, that's a decent idea if you won't be too tired. You might have to commit something like a day off or a weekend, something like that, so that you're reliably free and you will be ready to stream. You'll be comfortable streaming at that time. I think a good rule of thumb is that you also shouldn't just barely be able to make it. You should like stick your head in the shower before you stream. You maybe not specifically, literally, but have the time to like wash up as a simple example. And now we'll talk about presentation a little bit. Yeah, you could optimize exactly when you go live to be at 4 p.m. because that's when people in English-speaking countries average being awake if you're in Eastern time, because people on the West Coast are waking up and people on the Eastern Europe are still awake but going to sleep. Yeah, whatever. And by the same token, you could, of course, wear a suit when you stream. But will you be more open and yourself if you wear a suit? Maybe some people, maybe. Probably not, though, most people. You should prioritize you being comfortable, in my opinion, because there's no reason to watch your stream except for you. So if you're not yourself, then it's all pointless. Like I'm not trying to be fluffy. There just is no point to you streaming. I don't care about your stream unless it's you. There isn't any other way it could have merit. There isn't any other way it could be good. Or that isn't you competing with someone who's arguably better. So it better be you, is my advice. Even if you're not going to take my approach, where it's all about having a conversation with the audience the whole time, I still think it's good to express yourself, which probably means wearing the clothing you feel the most comfortable in. Maybe you like going to Renaissance fairs, for example, and so you have like Renaissance fair clothing. If you would open up in that clothing and it says something about you and would be eye-catching to people, they would think, that's different. I wonder why they're wearing that. And then they start a conversation with you. That's good, provided you really will open up more. Me, I keep a pair of gym shorts next to the stream. And whenever I record or stream, like before I started recording this, I take off my pants and put on gym shorts because I get hot when I record or stream. I'm talking for like 3 hours straight when I record or stream. I am hot. I do not want to be all sweaty. That makes the content worse. So I am taking off my pants and putting on those gym shorts whenever I start recording. And I'll tell you, it's not a bad mental signal either. Like this is streaming mode, right? When I do videos and I'm in the video physically, you can see my face. Sometimes I put on like a little layer over a t-shirt or something that I'm wearing because I think it adds a lot of presentationalism for basically no change in comfort for me. But for streaming, I always stay as light as I possibly can. That's just what fits for me. I think you should prioritize your comfort, but if there's something you can add that's cool and unique looking, that's great. Same goes for decor. I'm not going to get into that too much, but put, soundproofing foam up. Blankets and like room dividers also help with the audio quality. Like there's a bed in here and that significantly improves the audio quality compared to if there wasn't a bed. There's a more ideal approach that doesn't include a bed, of course, but I just don't have the money. And so this is kind of a sink for all those bouncing echoes, right? Okay, so how do you actually talk during the stream though? You said people are going to want you to talk. Well, you don't have to talk the whole time, but you probably do need to strike up some conversation. And the problem is there are no viewers on your channel. None, not a one. You may want to get friends who are willing to talk on a call and kind of hang out a little bit so discussion is happening, and then when people come in, you can start discussion with them. This is difficult and will require some charity from your friends, but someone should be willing to help. And then you'll probably want to somewhat engage the people in chat. Even if this isn't really the goal for how you want to structure your stream, while your stream has no viewers and is not about anything, you probably just need to sort of try talking to the people in the audience as the primary focus of the stream. In that sense, when people assumed that a small stream is about conversation, they are kind of right in that your stream isn't about anything yet, right? But what I'd recommend doing is doing that a few times, and then you're going to want to watch one of them, I think. Watch the stream and write down or make a note, type up everything that you thought was good. It doesn't matter what's bad. We're just focusing on what were the things that were good or could have appealed to someone. Were you to do them well, what aspects of what you did could be good? Don't worry about what was bad. Most of it is, and that's fine. You haven't done this before. Of course it's bad. It's fine. How do you think everyone else learned? They were brave enough to watch themselves fail at doing this often enough to get good at something about it. And that's what you'll need to do too, I think. This is the easiest way I can think of to do it. You could watch my streams and write down what I did that you think you could do well, and then make your own version of those things, for example. There's other stuff I could get into, like I would recommend making a break segment, figure out what is going to happen for the audience when you take a break during your 2 or 3 hours of streaming, which you really should. You'll probably be more fun to listen to if you do it anyway. So it's not even for you if that's how I have to word it to get you to take a break. You really should just take a break. Feel free to copy Archive Parley I assume you know about my streams, but if you don't, the segment I do where I pre-record some questions from people who've watched previous streams and I answer them in a little pre-recorded video to give myself time to go to the bathroom, while you, the audience, basically get the same experience. You just can't interact with me live for about 5 minutes, which I think is the best possible trade-off for the audience. I can't think of anything better. You might need to make up questions to answer, have your friend ask the questions, but that's okay to start out with. I just use a Google form that I send people in chat to ask for questions, and I have regulars that ask questions pretty frequently. And then once that video is recorded right before the stream, I just put it in a separate source, a separate scene on OBS, and when I'm ready to take a break, I just switch to that scene by clicking it on OBS, or I use my Stream Deck. I go to the bathroom, and then I switch back once the video playing in that scene is over. You can click the source and see the timer on the video, or sometimes I just wait for my hand signal that I do in the little video I've recorded. You could copy that. You could do something else. But yeah, some way to take a break, some way to talk with people. Those are both important. And then you want to watch it back, of course, and keep innovating those things. See how good the experience is. Is there a little way to make it better? Mostly colloquially, can you just speak or behave in a way that would make it better for people? I advise here at the end against trying to fake it or behave a certain way purposefully. You will fail over the course of hours to do that. So I would really try to embrace the way you want to act. But maybe it's good to treat it as something positive. This is kind of a treat. You get to hang out and just do what you like. And people get to share in what you like. You get to share what you like with other people. It's fun. This is what living is all about. That's fun. Just try to think of it as a little positive. Taking a few minutes before the stream to take a shower, stick your head in the shower, or just think about that can make a huge difference. Take a minute. You owe yourself a minute. You're spending hours streaming, so evidently you do have a minute in your life to sit down and just think, it's kind of great that you get to do this. Just use this time to do what you can do, and it's fine if it turns out bad. It's gonna turn out bad. Things being good doesn't matter. Everything is just pointless. So you're doing this to just be yourself. It's okay if it's not perfect. If you can do that, it's more worth watching your stream than basically every other person on Twitch. Most people haven't even gotten this far. So if you've gotten to this point in the video and you've done these things, you've streamed a few times, you've got your setup, you've watched back one of your streams, you are already doing better at streaming in my book than almost everyone who's ever streamed. A few closing recommendations. I think you should make a YouTube channel. I've alluded to this a lot. You can have your stream automatically get sent to that YouTube channel. Go to Video Producer on Twitch while you're logged into your streaming account. Maybe you should make a separate account for streaming. I'll let you figure out that. And you can click export on the little options next to the stream that you did that Twitch will automatically have recorded and kept up for a little while. And you can hit export and Twitch will automatically send that to a linked YouTube channel, or it'll probably ask you to link one if you haven't yet, which is awesome. Then you don't have to download the huge hours-long video file and then upload the huge hours-long video file yourself. Great. Even just putting up the archive unmodified on YouTube will get you more people watching your stream than if it was on Twitch. You might ask, why not stream to YouTube? Well, once you're a Twitch affiliate, which means you can accept money from subs and stuff, you can't stream simultaneously to another platform. You could also stream at a separate time to that other platform, but I would recommend investing that time in streaming on Twitch. So having the archive up there and then saying, you could say during the stream, like, hey, people watching the archive, like we originally did this on Twitch. If you're interested in hanging out, that's where this originally was. I would go very light on plugs. Whenever you plug something, if you talk about it for longer than a short amount of time, like just as quick as I just did, people's brains kind of turn off a little bit and they're not really hearing what you're saying. It's much better to just say, hey, just so you know, we were originally on Twitch, but I also wanted to put up an archive. There's no way anyone's going to find this otherwise. And then you stop there. If you can keep it brief, that's powerful. A powerful piece of reasoning that's clear, it's honest, it is why you're doing the thing, it's direct, and it's brief, that's great. Like if you can do that, that's really good. I think that will really catch people's attention. People who will be pleasant to have attention caught will have their attention caught by that type of thing. People who are sick of hearing a plug will appreciate that. I'm telling you, because I would appreciate that, sure. It's not the only approach, but it's what I'm going to recommend. If you can make a short version of whatever you discover is the unique thing about you that you're showcasing on the stream that I told you should try to be able to say, I think. If you can make a short version of that, that's a YouTube video, make it. And again, maybe in the description or the comments, you could say, we also stream and do this, if that sounds cool. Hope to see you sometime. Cool, good. That will definitely get you more viewers than streaming on Twitch. Again, there just isn't the same level of mechanism of discovery on Twitch, is my very, very oversimplified explanation of why you won't get a lot of new people just streaming on Twitch. Here I'll also warn against asking people to watch the stream specifically, like to do you a favor or something. Probably nobody who is listening to this much analytical discussion about this subject would be stupid enough to do this, but I just want to explain why it doesn't make sense to do. People can only be a long-term viewer of your stream if it fits into their schedule comfortably. They simply won't tune in otherwise. Asking people to watch your stream to do you a favor isn't like just lacking moral integrity. I'm not telling you not to do that because it's like selfish and bad to do, though I think it is. I'm telling you not to do it because it doesn't work, like because it isn't an effective approach. Like they're not just being selfish, they're incorrect in some meaningful way. I just wanted to emphasize that a little bit. Things like buying subscriptions or followers or views, that's a thing that people do. I mean, it's just bots watching the stream, but I just want to emphasize that it doesn't really accomplish anything. If you could get so many that your stream or video was like at the top of the charts for that subject, maybe then that would do something, but that would cost so much money that if your goal was business, you could just fix the problem right there by not purchasing that service. So that's one thing. And if it doesn't get you that many, it simply doesn't have any meaningful positive effect in the long term. So don't feel like you need to resist the temptation to do some scummy tactic. You can rest assured that it literally just doesn't work, or it doesn't accomplish your goal. Keep all that stuff in mind, I think you're going to do great. That was just what I had in this period of time. I'd just like to emphasize again, I could easily talk about this for hours. I just tried to fit in what I thought was the most helpful stuff, keeping in mind that if I make this a little shorter, you just might stream during the extra time. Good luck. Hope you enjoyed it. This was fun.